On Fanalysis, we take the stats born in fantasy football, combined with the latest betting trends to find the sharpest angles every week. And the lead betting analyst from Pickswise is with us to go over it, Jared Smith. Let's start with that Eagles-Giants game. Philly, 11-1, and is there a chance that they could overlook the Giants in this game, especially now with the injury status of Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, that would be the one angle that you can use if you want to try to take the points with the Giants here. But the Cowboys are coming on really strong in that NFC East, and I think it would be a very bad look for Philly at this stage. I mean, listen, I've waited for the other shoe to drop with the Eagles at some point this year. I thought maybe they were a little bit overvalued because Jalen Hurts was playing a little bit ahead of his skis, but they've proven everyone wrong. I mean, they're the best team in the NFL right now. I think it's fair to put them at the top of the power ratings. And I think it's fair to make them a pretty heavy road favorite in this game, especially with Saquon out. And a big part of it's their defense, Steve. I think what we saw last week against Derrick Henry was a masterclass scheme put forth by Jonathan Gannon, who stuffed the box on almost 50% of plays with 8 guys. And he made Ryan Tannehill say, okay, bud, go ahead, beat us. And then what he did on the back end with disguising some of the coverages, and if Tannehill's 10-year veteran can't diagnose it, I don't feel very confident in Daniel Jones having a lot of success trying to push the ball down the field. First of all, the Giants' passing offense has not been efficient all year, and now you're throwing in what is playing right now like a top 5, top 10 kind of defense in the Eagles. So I think it could be a rough day for the Giants' offense. Now, catching 7 points at home, sure, that seems really good in a divisional game, and divisional underdogs have been the soup du jour, but divisional unders have also been a very profitable bet this year at over 62%. That's my angle for this game. I think the Eagles defense is buttoned up. I think the Giants, even if Saquon plays, are going to have struggling moving the football, and I think that will put Philly in a part where they want to just run this game out and get to where the meat of their schedule really over the next 2 weeks, especially with that Dallas game looming.
And let's be honest, I mean, Jalen Hurts is sniffing that MVP. So every single week, he knows that every week is a chance for him to put a stamp on his candidacy for the MVP. But I'd like to get into, I guess, the betting trends here, because this line has basically stuck at 7 in 2 markets that bet heavily. New York and Philadelphia are heavy betting markets, and the line hasn't really moved. What is that telling you about where that line started, where it is right now, and whether or not this is maybe the perfect line for this game?
I think it is, actually. And I think when and you're right, the look ahead was 6.5. And when it reopened on Sunday, it hasn't really moved off the 7, in some of these offshore markets, which are kind of the leading indicators of what the U.S. markets will do. And I think a lot of the numbers are probably telling you Philly's the right side, but we haven't seen it move to 7.5 yet. Maybe the Saquon news is the final push that it needs to get this off the 7. But you're right. We have seen a bit of a battle here between 6.5 and 7 throughout the week. My guess is we don't see a significant move from the Saquon news.
Are you interested in
running backs? Running backs just don't have a huge sway on the market, even though it is Saquon Barkley.
Well, yeah, when Daniel Jones has been out rushing him, that's always a key factor as well.
Exactly.
Are you interested at all in an alternate line then? Would you want to move that number?
Let's just leave it at this. If I'm going to play Philly, the handicap is probably they're going to win this game like they did last week, 35-10. So, yeah, maybe a minus 13.5 with Philly, getting plus 200 around that number might be an interesting one if you think Philly's the right side here.
All right. Speaking of big numbers, I mean, the Jets are 10-point dogs right now in Buffalo. The Bills have 60% of the handle, only 35% of the tickets. Does that suggest a play there? Is that strong enough of a separation to suggest a play?
Oh, it's funny. There's been a lot of controversy, not controversy, but a lot of chatter amongst the sharps and some of the gambling public about how much the ticket count is A, reliable, and B, actionable. And I've been on both sides here. So when I first started out doing this, 3-4 years ago, really in the media world, I've been gambling ever since I was a kid, but in the media world, I really did take a lot of stock in those public percentages because I didn't really have much else to go on at that point. I was just starting out my handicapping journey, publicly. And it was data. It was information. I thought it was actionable. I'm not so sure anymore. I think it really depends on the context and where you're getting the information from and at what point in the week those splits come to you. For example, if it's a snapshot from the first 24 to 48 hours of what the betting market shows, it's probably mostly sharp money that comes in during that time. So it's hard to say 65, 70% of the tickets are public bets because the time of the week those bets come in tends to be more sharp professional money. Meanwhile, later in the week on a Sunday morning at a major sports book, I would be a little bit more comfortable saying, all right, 75% of the tickets, that's public money. So again, context with the data is so important. In this particular case, it does appear to me that Buffalo is taking some pretty significant money because it has kissed up to that number of 10. Maybe it's injury related for the Jets. Maybe it's Mike White related, but maybe also Buffalo is just, rounding back into form. And they had a tough stretch there, some travel problems with the Cleveland game, and then back on a Thursday against the Lions in a Thanksgiving spot. And the Lions are playing a lot better, but they saw this Bills team last week doing what they normally do, which is blow out the Patriots. That's been their MO over the last couple of years with Josh Allen. And now they have extra rest. So they have extra rest after the Thursday game to go back and watch the Bills-Jets game from a few weeks ago where the Jets won outright as a 10.5-point dog and kind of diagnose what went wrong there. And I don't think this Jets team I really was hoping I was wrong, or I was right last week when I stuck my neck out and said the Jets were going to win that game. But
well, you know what? Honestly,
didn't get it done.
Man, you would never expect when you are first and goal on the 5-yard line twice, you have a 95% chance of scoring a touchdown there. All right, so you wouldn't have expected the Jets to go 1 for 6 in the red zone. They absolutely should have won that game, which would have changed the line on this one. So it kind of almost makes you wonder, are we balancing this properly? Or do you look at it and say their red zone ineffectiveness might carry over against a Bills team that's 4th best in the NFL in weighted DVOA?
Yeah. These are, listen, these are, you want to talk about defensive analytics. These are two of the best teams out there right now in that category. So I don't expect there to be a lot of room to roam with these two offenses. And the weather could be a factor. I'm actually hearing all of the East Coast games this week. Buffalo, there in, East Rutherford, where you are, could be affected by some, rogue systems clipping the area as you normally tend to get on a December Sunday. So keep in mind that the weather could absolutely impact the passing games here. I would say it probably impacts both teams equally. Neither team is really run heavy. I think the Bills maybe could be a little better running the ball, but they aren't. And the Jets, their offensive line, of course, Breece Hall being out makes it really difficult. But I just think it's a really tough ask for the Jets to win twice against Buffalo. I don't see that happening. So it's all about covering, right? And if I don't think a team's going to win, I don't really tend to like to bet them against the spread. So as much as you're talking to Mr. Jet fan here, I'd love to see another upset here and them take another step towards the playoffs. But I think last week kind of poured some cold water on how I feel about this team in the long term.
Well, if they can pull off 2 10-point dog upsets on the money line, I think that Jets fans would be happy about a sweep over the Bills. That's how he sees the Jets and the Giants games. Make sure you check out our other segment on the Week 14 Best Bets. For Jared Smith and Pickswise, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.